Hi everyone, welcome to the Phase B lectures of the self-knowledge course. Today we are going to be studying the topic number 22, the intimate life of each one. We are almost arriving to the end of the cycle of 25 lectures that comprises the Phase B of the self-knowledge course. Today's topic is very important as we are going to be learning today the three types of lives that we all have, and we are going to be learning why not to mix them and how not to mix them, right? I am over here sharing the link of this live broadcast in our WhatsApp and Telegram groups. So, inviting people to join this live broadcast, right? And if you are not yet part of our groups, and if you want to join them to receive the link when we are live on the Phase B and Phase A lectures, the Phase A lectures we are sharing them on Sundays, and the Phase B on Sundays, and the Phase A lectures we are sharing them every Monday and Tuesday and Thursday. If you want to receive links when we are broadcasting live, or if you want to receive complementary material on any of these topics, we always send to our groups text, written PDF on each topic, and also the audio of each conference. Here in the description of this video, you can find the link to join our groups. All the information that we share here in this group and all the lectures are totally for free. See, and well, I just finished sharing here, and let's immediately start with today's lecture. Remember that if you have any question on this topic, right, or on the self-knowledge course, do not hesitate to leave your comments, your questions there in the comment box, and we will be gladly solving any question that you have, right? And well, today, as I was saying, we are going to be studying the lecture number 22, titled The Intimate Life of Each One. And the objective of this lecture is to show us that we all develop on three different planes, right? That they shouldn't be confused, that we shouldn't mix them up with each other. This lecture is actually very important because understanding these three aspects, knowing how to differentiate and how to separate them, right, will allow us to have better relationships with our external world, and above all, it will allow us to have a better relationship with our own inner being, which is the most important thing. And we are going to be learning today why it is important to keep the necessary silence in relation to our very intimate life, which is the relationship that we all have with our own inner being, in our inner world, right? And we will understand why is it important to keep silent about the different advances and all the internal information that we are going to be receiving along this path, right? So let's immediately start with today's lecture. And let's see that there are three types of life in which we all develop. There is our public life, which occurs with all the people and situations outside our family nucleus. There is our private life, that is the one that occurs directly in our home or on our family nucleus, right? And there is the intimate life of each one, that is related to our internal world and all the internal experiences that we live. So let's analyze each of these lives. Let's first talk about the public life of each one. And it is that aspect of our life that occurs from the doors of our home to the outside. That is, with all the people who are not part of our family nucleus, right? There we live everything in relation, for example, to our work, to all our friendships, relations, right? The relationship with our colleagues, with, for example, the students to whom we deliver this knowledge to, and in general with everyone and everything relevant to the external world, right? This public life is very important since a part of the great psychological gym, which represents the different people and the situations that we live with them, it is also the one that helps us to develop the third factor for the evolution of the consciousness, which is the sacrifice for humanity, right? Since this relationship with the outside world allow us to develop conscious love by giving all those brothers of humanity the opportunity to receive this knowledge that will allow them, of course, to understand that their existence has a purpose and to receive the tools so they can achieve the purpose of that existence, right? And we then see that public life is very, very important. It gives us the opportunity to do the merits of the heart for our inner advancement, right? As we develop this love, sharing the knowledge with others. And it also presents us with the opportunity through the law of the mirror to better understand ourselves, right? Because when we relate with other people and we see in them such or such psychological defects, we can actually use that as an opportunity to look for that defect in ourselves, right? Because if something is there, let's see, arising in us in the form of criticism, of judgment, of hatred, or whatever, it is because that same defect, that very same defect that we see in others, is alive inside of us. And then we have the marvelous opportunity to do the psychological death work to eliminate that defect from within and to drag from that defect a comprehension, the wisdom that will allow us to better understand others and to relate better with others. So you see that this public life is absolutely important. Now, what is really, really important is that we learn not to mix our public life with the other two types of lives that we have. We must learn not to bring to public life the things and situations pertaining to our private life, right? And we must not bring to public life what happens in our home. All the psychological gyms that we live with our own family are actually private. And above it all, we must learn not to ventilate in public life what happens in that very, very private life, which is our couple's relationship. That is absolutely private. And especially everything that is related to the sexual part, right? That we must understand. We must reflect on this to understand that that is private and shouldn't go ever out into public life. And we are going to analyze now when we talk about the intimate life, also that we shouldn't ventilate in public life the processes that we live internally in relation to our own inner being and the internal experiences that our inner being will be constantly giving us, right? But it is also very important to learn not to bring the problems of public life to our private life, that is, to our home. We must learn to, for example, leave work at work. Altercations and situations that are experienced outside, we must resolve them through psychological depth and not take them home. Since many times we have situations in our public life and we make the mistake of carrying that psychological song with us into our house. We tend to carry it to the members of our family, and they end up paying for the broken dishes, right? They end up like mixing, we end up mixing them in that situation, perturbing their peace with that situation, etc. So we must reflect on this, right? Well, as we can see, it is vitally important learn not to mix these lives, right? Let's now see the private life, the private life of each one. And in this one, we are going to find what is pertinent to the family, the parents, the children, and of course, the couple. And by observing this life, we can see that it is also from the exterior world, and it totally unfolds in the outside world, right? Here we are going to find all the psychological gem that the family relationship represents. That life has a very important aspect since its most private part, which is the relationship that we have directly with our own partner, will allow us to develop the first factor for the revolution of consciousness, which is the spiritual birth. So it is vitally important to treasure our relationship, our partner, our couple's relationship, right? We must learn to give our partner the value and the respect that our partner deserves, since he or she is that special person who is going to collaborate with us so that the creation of the existential bodies of our being that will allow us to or that will allow our consciousness to have manifestation in the different dimensions of nature, well, becomes a reality. So it's actually a very, very important person in our lives, and we are going at the same time to collaborate with him or with her, right? So that part is absolutely important. Now, very important also, we must learn not to take the private things of our family, but especially of us with our partner, to the public life. No one should interfere in the couple's relationship. No one. We must work, understand, and eliminate those psychological defects that like to go around talking about the things related to a family relationship, but above all, of our relationship with our partner. We must observe what are the defects in us that likes talking with our friends or with other relatives about the situations that develops in our couple relationships and problems, for example, looking for advice. We must understand that that is actually a terrible mistake, since the things of private life must be resolved in private through the work of psychological depth, through the development of conscious love, right? But it is also extremely important to learn not to get into the private life of others. That is also very important, to never go as a counselor to tell others what they should do in their private lives, what they should do in their marriage, or how they should handle their relationship situations, right? Each person must, with the guidance of their own inner being and their own inner work, learn to resolve those particular situations. So if someone, for example, asks us for advice about his private life, it is actually our duty to tell that person to seek and to follow the guidance of his own consciousness. We must give that person the knowledge, the tools to communicate with his inner being, right? The tools to develop intuition, for example, so that they can ask to the very the real wise, which is his inner internal father, right? And it is also very important to remember not to bring the problems of public life into private life, right? And well, that is, let's say that the private life of each one. So let's now see the third type of life, which is the most important one. That is the intimate life of each one. And to this life belongs everything related to our inner world. Once we start like this path of self-knowledge, that intimate life takes on a very, very important value, since it is in this life that we will find that intimate communication with our inner being. That communication will take place through our internal experiences, right? And during our inner work. And in this intimate life that we will live in our inner world, for example, the different initiations that we are going to receive, the different degrees, the different advances that our being will receive, because those advances are of the being, right? Must be kept in private. As we advance on the three factors for the revolution of consciousness, those advancements, of course, will take place. That is like a natural process on this path, right? but all those internal experiences that each one is living in the internal world, everything that we live in the astral, mental, causal world, etc., are actually part of that intimate life of each one. All those secret teachings that each one of us is going to be receiving in the inner world, all the different secrets that are being revealed to us as we advance in this inner work are related to this intimate life, right? And it is very important that we understand that the intimate life, like prostitutes itself, when we take it to public life. And it is a very serious mistake that actually generates a lot of stagnation in our inner work. When we learn to keep in silence, right, to remain silent about the different things that we receive in the internal worlds, then we demonstrate to our inner being that we are worthy of receiving all that treasure of wisdom that our inner being is keeping for us, right? So to learn to silence is very important. And for this, we must work in our pride, right? Because that is the basic psychological defect that loves talking about himself and about his intimate things, you know? Out of pride, we end up saying everything, right? Telling almost the things that are going to make us, let's say, that vulnerable before people, right? And when we tell our experiences, actually they lose strength. But if we keep them silent, later we will understand them, and that will give us like psychological strength. Because most of the time we tell them because we want someone who interpret the experience for us. But by telling them or by asking another person to interpret that astral experience for us, we actually lose the opportunity to make our own effort, right? To trust and seek the guidance of our own consciousness, of our own master, who is our inner being. And when we, for example, make the mistake of telling these inner experiences out of vanity, right, out of pride, or due to indiscretion, we actually run the risk that our inner being stop giving us important information. Many of the experiences that our inner parents give us allows us to directly experience and to understand different things. So they become reality and that gives us strength. But many times internally, we are given, for example, warnings through the astral world about things that are going to happen in the physical world. Things that, for example, we allow us to unmask many traitors. They can warn us about, for example, the interference of black magicians who come to harm the process of sacrifice for humanity that we are doing, right? We also many times receive warnings about coming recurrences, right? And for that reason, it is very important to make the effort to learn to interpret our astral experiences and not to tell anyone else to interpret them from us, because by doing so many times we fail to realize those warnings that we directly are receiving, right? If we put, for example, another person to interpret our astral experiences or our dreams for us, that person will tell us what he thinks it may be, right? But he doesn't know like the different nuances or the internal aspects that generated that experience. And we could end up confused, right? And disoriented. And on the other hand, if that person, for example, tends to guess all the time what our inner being wants to show us in the experience, then what happens is that we generate like dependency on that person. And we go on constantly revealing to that person the different secrets that we are or that our inner being is entrusting to us. And we never develop that intuition, that capacity to interpret our experiences, right? Then we don't develop that strength. We don't develop like that confidence in our own stage by relying on the strength of an external person, right? And another important aspect is that by telling our experiences, we are like psychologically undressing ourselves before the person or the persons to whom we are telling our internal experiences, right? In addition, if the person, for example, has the knowledge about how to interpret the dreams and have, for example, bad intentions, he could use that information to manipulate us psychologically to break to our inner world, right? To enter a fifth dimension, to attack us through the astral plane, through the mental plane, etc., etc. So it's important that we learn to remain silent about all of these things. And another reason why we must learn to silence our experiences is the impression that we leave on those who listen to our experiences and the consequences it may bring, right? Since when we tell our internal experiences, we can awaken in people, for example, envy or frustration if they are, for example, very some experiences. The other person can end up frustrated, thinking, I don't know, my inner being does not help me. I'm not receiving what that person is receiving. I'm a failure, and so on. And they could even end up withdrawing from inner work for this reason. And we, in that case, are going to earn a karma for that indiscretion, right? On the other hand, if our experiences are, for example, very impressive for others, we could generate fanaticism, that they see us as someone special, you know, someone who is very advanced in the inner path, right? And that will lead us also to feed the mythomania, that mythomaniac defect that is very, very dangerous, right? So, for that reason, we must understand that we harm ourselves terribly when we tell our external experiences. We do ourselves a great harm, and we harm others, and we risk being removed from the esoteric work for being irresponsible, right? That serious is this topic. And we are going to be receiving in the internal worlds very delicate information about ourselves and also about other people. And we are going to be receiving very delicate information about the universe in general, you know, about this nature, about what we are doing here, about the plan behind all of this creation. And if we don't know how to remain silenced, we could actually end up affecting the processes and the spiritual development of others. So the internal experiences should not be told, because an oath that we make with our internal father and our internal mother of not to divulge the secret teachings that we are receiving is going to be violated. And they are called secret teachings because we receive them in the superior worlds by our inner being and our inner father, our particular mother, you know. They are revealed to us by them. So by divulging them, then they don't trust us with secrets again. And then comes the darkness. That is what is known esoterically as one night, right? Because one of the consequences of getting of divulging, right? This inner information, this delicate internal information, is that they take away from us the capacity to remember our astral experiences, right? First, to the capacity to consciously unfold ourselves to the astral plane, and if we are like refalling in the same mistake, they can take away from us the light. And the time and the darkness of that night will depend on the seriousness of the fault. At first, for example, a penalty for our indiscretion can be that they take away, for example, the fluidity and the ease with which we unfold consciously to the astral plane and how often we do it, right? But if we resort to the fault They will not allow us to remember even our dreams. Can be for a week, can be for months, or even for years, depending on the recurrence in the error or on the magnitude of the information that is revealed to us, right? Or in that we revealed in the external world. Then it would be very painful to learn to silence by the end of losing the light internally. That is why we have this lecture, right? And that is why we have these warnings. But now we must learn out of intuition to differentiate when the inner knowledge that we receive at a certain moment is received in an open book or in a closed book. Because when we receive esoteric knowledge in closed books internally, that we feel that we know that those are delicate secret things. For example, things related to our different dances, to the degrees that our inner being is receiving. Very delicate information that we know that those are secret things. It is actually knowledge for our being exclusively. It shouldn't be revealed in the external world, right? And for this reason, it is necessary to know how to be silent about those things. Once we awaken our consciousness and we receive, for example, the permission from our inner being to talk in the external world about any of those inner processes, about any advancement, well, then we can do it. But by now that we are all asleep, we should learn to be silent about all that, right? And we feel it through intuition. That is why in the lecture number 20, we were talking about how to develop intuition, right? Because that will allow us to know what information is received in closed books. Even sometimes in the astral plane, they can be telling us something and we can actually see the closed book. And then we know that is secret, that is only for me. I shouldn't talk about that in the external world at all, right? But if the information that we are receiving is in an open book, actually it can be delivered, for example, to our students. Let's say that we receive information that will help us to enrich the understanding on the topics that we are delivering on self-knowledge, right? Then we can use that information to teach others, right? Right. And the important thing is that we get clear about that everything related to our internal advances, initiations, degrees, internal processes that we are living is information that must be handled solely and exclusively between us and our inner being. We must not bring it to public life or to private life, right? We must be completely hermetic with that information. That is actually something very important to understand. And well, people, this is the lecture number 22 of Phase B. I will invite you to our next Phase B lecture, a very important one. It's titled The Symbol of the Eagle Swallowing the Serpent. In that lecture, we are going to be talking about the last 3 steps that must be taken to achieve the self-realization of our being. For example, in the previous lecture, when we were talking about the intimate Christ, right, and the death of the causal selves, we were talking about the process of the second mountain. And in this one, we are going to be talking about the process of the third mountain and how that process was represented in the, for example, Mesoamerican cultures of the past. So it is a very, very interesting conference. Please do not miss it. And remember that if at any point you have any question on this lecture or on this self-knowledge course, you can contact us or you can leave your questions there in the comment section and we will gladly solving any question you have. And remember that if you are not yet part of our WhatsApp or Telegram groups, here in the description of this video, you can find the link to join those groups. And well, thank you very much to all of you who are sharing here with us today and see you the next time. Bye-bye.